Welcome into week 6 of the Frostburg Sports Awards, and we're kicking things off with Katie Chapple from softball, who had a fine Saturday for the softball team and a pair of wins. Katie, just want to get some of your thoughts on your performance and the team's performance overall this past weekend.
Well, I think that the team did great. I think going out there, when I first went out, I was a little nervous just because of how things had gone the past weekend. But our defense had been working so well. So I went out there with complete confidence that they had my back and our offense was working. So honestly, I had no doubt that we were going to win that game and the game afterward.
In your performance on Saturday, a total of 9 1/3 innings pitched, 14 strikeouts, only 6 hits allowed, and no runs across 2 games. Your first collegiate complete game shutout. What was the team's reaction once you had thrown that final pitch to get you guys the win? Was it like a mobbing thing, or were they like, you know what, just good job, Katie?
No, they definitely mobbed me, especially because it made the last play of the game. I did a little backhand, which we had been working on fielding in practice because I am a PO. I don't actually practice fielding, and I got the last play of the game on actually a fielding play. So they were all really excited for me about that, and the fact that I just won my first game, and the fact that it was a shutout. So it was all just a lot of excitement at one time. It was really awesome.
You got to show off the defense.
Yeah, no, I had to. I had no choice.
Going back a couple of weeks here, in your guys' first opening weekend, it was against Anderson and West Georgia and Lander. A tough weekend with it being your first games and some pretty tough teams there. What was the experience like to go down and play in some warm weather, get back on the field? And we talked with your coach, Bill Vasco, that, you know, it was going to be sort of just everyone getting their feet wet. We're not going to take a whole lot from the results themselves, but we just want to get on the field back to playing. And is that sort of the vibe that you had as the team as well?
Yeah, definitely. And it's also hard because there's 12 freshmen. We're very, very young, and we're just starting to get to know each other on the field and off the field. But last weekend, or the Anderson weekend, I think obviously it didn't go as well as we all wanted it to. We don't want to lose 4 games. But I think it really did help us focus on what we need to work on, because the past 2 weeks were actually a lot of hard work put in. And I know my attitude was that I don't want something like that to happen again, so I'm going to put in the work to make sure that it doesn't. And I think a lot of girls had that attitude, and it worked out for us this weekend. And I think a lot of people's attitudes changed. A lot of people are working for the team. We're coming together. We're finding where everyone fits on the field, and we're all just supporting each other. And I think it's really great. So I think we kind of did need that experience.
It was sort of similar last season, obviously coming in as a freshman and may not have seen every single game last year, but Shawan was our first 3 games and lost 2 out of 3, and that was sort of the reverse of this year. We're now, you know, taking 1 of 2 off of Shawan and coming back to win that. Wanted to talk about some of the players coming back from last year, Sydney Theobald and Sierra Sanderson, who are another couple of pitchers. Obviously, Sydney's the starter, and Sierra will come in from the bullpen, but I mean, they're only a pair of sophomores that, you know, don't have a ton of experience themselves, played 1 year, but obviously they can be leaders in terms of you and another freshman pitcher coming in, and that's essentially your pitching staff. But how have they helped you guys, you know, come into the college game and work yourselves up from the high school and travel level into now, you know, full-time collegiate level?
Well, Sierra is my roommate, actually. She sort of prepared me for what was to come. Sid, I'm with Sid all the time. Both of us are always pitching together because Jamie hits, Sierra hits, me and Sid hits too, but mainly we're the people that are pitching in practice a lot, so we have a lot of time with each other. And we kind of balance each other out. She helps me calm down when I need it, and I help her calm down when she needs it. She's awesome. Like, she is working so hard, and so is Sierra, and so is Jamie. Everybody is working so hard, and I'm so proud of everybody and how far we've progressed even to this point in week 2. Like, I think we're going to be in great shape, and I think that as long as we continue to support each other like we have been, we're gonna be just fine.
Continuing on the trend of looking at this early season schedule, it's obviously a lot of away trips and a lot of miles that you guys are having on the bus and the long trips down to the south and, you know, to the East Coast. The value of that in terms of being able to play, but looking at the conference schedule, which begins in a couple weeks, are you ever looking at the other conference teams to see how they're doing, or you guys are pretty much just always focused on yourselves, the next thing up, or is it, you know, sort of a little bit of a balance of both?
I would say it's a little bit of a balance of both. I know for me, on the bus on the way home, I was checking some stats of the other teams in the conference just to see how they were doing compared to what we were doing. But I don't think we're really worried about what's to come. I think we're just ready for when it does come. We're going to be working hard up until that point, and we're going to get playing time on this field because we haven't been able to get on our own field. So we're basically just using this time to get on the field, get some practice, and get some reps in before we do go into conference play, I think.
A couple of seniors on the team this year, Ava Ganivas and Kennedy Batchelor, are really the two big seniors. And Bree Powell, who's a junior, is always a very vocal leader and is always, up and energetic about the team. And a couple seniors from last season's team that graduated are helping you guys out. Has that sort of been the leadership core? Is there anyone else that has really been with you guys? And what value do the people that I mentioned bring to this team?
I think Ava and Ken have really, really stepped it up. In the fall, I think they were a bit unsure of whether they should be leading and being vocal, but I look up to them. I look to them for advice. I want to listen to them. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear them give me criticisms, and same with Bree. Bree is very good about doing that. Trust me. She doesn't have a problem with doing that, and I love it, honestly. I want us to be able to hold each other accountable, and Ava and Ken have really started to do that, and I really, really think that that's what's helping us out right now. As for the other people on the team who could be seen as leaders, I think there are a lot of people who have started to step up, especially since Anderson. Because that was an issue that we had a little bit during that weekend, is that we would just the energy would die down and nobody would bring it back up. And I think even some of the underclassmen felt a little bit intimidated with doing that. But we had a little discussion a week or two ago after the Anderson games, and we talked about how it's okay for everybody to hold each other accountable, not just the upperclassmen. So I think a few of the underclassmen have started to step up and be more vocal, even if they are underclassmen. If you have a voice, you can use it.
Going back to you personally, and looking ahead to this weekend where it's another road trip and a pretty long one at that, building off of this past weekend, how are you going to prepare going into this weekend where you have a little bit more of that confidence level coming off some good performances, going in and practicing this week, and maybe if the weather cooperates, getting outside a little bit on the field, but what's going to be your preparation going into this week?
Well, the main thing that I have to work on personally is my two-strike pitches. So I have had an issue where when I get two strikes on a batter, I won't throw it far enough out, and they'll get a hit off it, because obviously on two strikes you're looking to swing, and I need to work on really pushing them out so that they don't hit them, because a lot of my hits do come off of two strikes. But I think other than that, I'm really just going to be focusing on confidence, staying calm and collected, and I think with all that, with Sid pitching the way she is, Jamie and Sierra practicing the way that they are, I think we're going to be great.
Well, Katie, thank you for coming on today to come and talk to us. We're very appreciative with you having classes and your game schedule and practices, but we all appreciate our athletes being here, and congratulations once again on your weekend.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, well, next up, we will have our male athlete of the week, A Campbell from baseball, as we keep the base paths around for this week of the Frostburg Sports Awards. So be sure to stay tuned, and as always, go Bobcats. Back with week 6 of the Frostburg Sports Awards, and I'm with our male athlete of the week, A Campbell from baseball, who had a very solid offensive weekend as baseball won all 4 of their games. AJ, just want to get some of your initial thoughts on your overall performance and how the team performed as well.
Well, I got to give credit, first of all, to Jack Lawrence. He had 2 grand slams in the first game. That was crazy. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, so I wanted to make sure he gets a little bit of recognition in there too. But the team played very well. Offensive had another showing again, like we did in the opening weekend. I believe over 40 runs combined this weekend. Beautiful thing. Pitching was pretty solid, shut him down. Defense played pretty great too.
So going back into your initial part of the year, the opening weekend trip, starting out the year 0 for 9 and did not record a hit. And what were the adjustments that you made from those opening at-bats? Was it anything that you did personally, or was it just kind of luck of the game and how you were seeing pitches that allowed you to have such a good offensive weekend this past weekend?
I mean, I think part of it was just being a little bit of anxious coming back, like first weekend back after having surgery. So in a way, like I was just kind of maybe trying to do too much. Had a couple conversations with some people back home, talked with the coaches. They kind of cleared my head a little bit. Coach Williams' dad, Larry, who's awesome guy, awesome guy. Night before the first two games was just have fun, try to hit the ball hard up the middle. And that was my approach all weekend.
We start off game one against Shawan, and in the middle of that game was 5 total home runs hit, but obviously the 2 big ones, you mentioned them. Jack Lawrence with 2 grand slams. So he hits the first one. Obviously everyone's all excited and hyped up and going up, and you see him walk up to the plate and bases are loaded again. And I remember we're watching the game downstairs in Ben Crowder's office in the equipment room, and I look at him and I go, he could hit another grand slam here. Was that the thought of any of the team, or was no one thinking about that, and then he hit it, and then everyone exploded?
Well, when he first walked up to the plate, we weren't really just thinking about, oh, bases are loaded, he could do it again. And then he had a swing where he swung out of his shoes, and we're like, oh, that was a player of the week swing right there. I think Bryce Jackson looked and he was like, that was player of the week swing. A couple more pitches go by, and then he cranks another one, and I was like, yep. Like, it was too poetic not to happen, to be completely honest.
Later in that game, you hit your own 3-run home run, and then in the game right after that against Mid-Atlantic Christian, you hit another 2-run home run, and it was part of a weekend where you guys hit 9 home runs overall. You scored 48 runs. You mentioned scoring 40-something runs earlier there against two other teams, and that comes off of 32 total runs scored against Bluefield State the other week. This, has the makings of a very, very good offensive year. And last year, obviously, one thing that wasn't exactly keyed on in was the pitching. And now the pitching staff seems to have a lot of stuff together where it looks like finally those two are merging together.
Yeah, it's definitely a beautiful thing. I know last year, again, I wasn't a part of the season last year, but our offense was, I want to say, top 4 in most of the categories, everything. And our pitching, it's not that they didn't perform how they wanted to perform. But now picked up some really good JUCO arms with Max Proctor, Will Grove, and Ethan Keipel too. Like, we picked up a lot of good arms. Benville coming back from surgery. I know Hayden Ford is going to be back soon. So the pitching staff has a lot more depth this year than we had last year. So with what Coach Pete preaches is having 100% conviction in everything you do, and just being a competitor, being a warrior. Like, between his mentality that he shares and he really gets us fired up. Like, our pitchers have a lot more confidence on the mound. We have a lot more confidence in our defense. So it's sort of a perfect storm right now.
You talked about the depth and wanted to get into the hitting depth as well, where, as mentioned, the 9 home runs total throughout the weekend. And just some of the guys you mentioned, and Jack Lawrence and Bryce Jackson will get the headlines, but, yourself played really well, and Jack Maruskin is obviously going to be a dual threat on the mound and hitting-wise. Chase Odell now leads the team in batting average. He had a really good weekend. Trevor Jones had a really good weekend. He's been offensively up there. Ethan Keipel, you also mentioned, can hit behind the plate as well, where there's so many options in this lineup that, Jack was, hit 2 grand slams in a game. You are player of the week, hit 3 home runs. Bryce is arguably the most dangerous hitter in the conference, and you guys have to share a lineup along with all the guys behind you as well.
Yeah, it's scary. It's very, very scary where you can just mix and match like a bunch of guys, put them anywhere in the lineup, and they're all going to produce. From 1 to 9 guys that maybe don't start that game. I hate to use the word bench players because this team doesn't have bench players. We have a lot of talent in this offense, and you can just pick apart and put them wherever you want to go, and you can almost guarantee take it to the bank they're going to succeed.
In the final game that you played in over the weekend, the second game against Shawan, the third game overall for you guys, was a really close game throughout, and you got a pretty big hit to go up by 2 runs early in the game, and then both teams really struggled for offense. It was really a pitching duel until the 8th inning, and you finally got that single to break through and take that lead, and then the guys were able to hold it down at the end of the game. To get that hit in that close game where you guys have been used to the blowouts and winning by 10 runs up until that point, that was really the first time where you guys had been fully challenged throughout a whole game. So how big was it to get that big hit in such a key situation?
It felt good, to be completely honest. But again, I got to shout out Jack Lawrence again because he put a ball in play, took a funny hop, kid just couldn't come up with it. And then on good base running, he got the second. New pitcher came in, and Jack, he's not the fastest kid in the world, to be completely honest, but he's a very, very good base runner. Very good base runner. So he gets on second, and that kid's actually a menace. So I think he kind of took a big jump off the lead. Like, you hear step off, the pitcher might have been in his own head. And because he's kind of maybe thinking about Jack, he grews one to me, and I was able just to put a ball in play, and he was able to score. So.
You talked about the base running and being aggressive, where Obviously, this team isn't necessarily built on speed. You've obviously got some quick guys. Obviously, Jack Maruskin, Aaron Dutton, who's a very quick outfielder. Josh Netterville might be the fastest guy on the team as well.
Maybe in the school.
Maybe in this school. But looking at them as a whole, I looked at some of the stats for this week and wanted to see some of where we stand and looked at stolen bases, which was really interesting to me, and looked back at last year. Last year was 55 stolen bases in 31 games played. This year, it's now 31 stolen bases in only 7 games played, which obviously is averaging almost 4 stolen bases a game, a little bit over that. Has that been a message from the coaching staff to you guys, or is it just, certain guys get on base and they have a green light to go whenever they want?
It's honestly a little bit of both. We work really hard on trying to see if a pitcher's tipping or if he gets in a certain rhythm or anything that gives away, makes it easier. We're very heavy on a stopwatch. We get the pitcher's time going to the plate. We get the catcher's pop time. We all have our steal break time, so we know if it's under this time, who can go when. Because again, some guys are faster than others. Like Josh Netterville could steal on anyone. At the risk of being overly confident, he can steal on pretty much anyone in this conference and maybe most of D2 baseball because he's kid's lightning quick. Same thing with Aaron Dutton, Jack Maruskin, even Danny Estrada. That kid's fast. You don't really hear much about him. But yeah, a lot of that's preached. I know Coach Williams is very aggressive in what he likes to do. He likes stealing those extra bases. His key is to get onto second base.
Looking ahead to this weekend, you guys are going to be down in Cary, North Carolina. Another weekend in North Carolina for you guys, and a few tough games as well. And obviously, our closest one that we know of is Westchester, one of the top teams in the PSAC that you guys will be facing off against. Going in and looking at what the team has done so far, certainly there's going to be a little bit an aura of confidence going around the team, starting off 7-0 and playing pretty well up until this point. But is there a thought in the back of your mind of all right, well, we still got to stay grounded and stay level, even though we've played well, because, it's a whole new ball game, figuratively and literally, for you guys, that these could be some tough teams coming up as well, and just using that momentum to carry you guys forward?
100%. I think you do got to go into the game confidently. You can't go into a game with your tail tucked between your legs. You got to go into a game believing that you can win and that you can compete with any team there is. With that being said, it's kind of what we're trying to do with this season is we started the season off in Beckley, West Virginia, and as you know, we're still on probation. We cannot compete for regionals or anything beyond that. So our goal is to finish in Beckley, West Virginia, and that will not happen unless we can compete and win against these teams like Westchester, Franklin and Pierce, New Haven, I believe he played too, and then the following weekend after that, Goldie Beacom, who's a really, really talented team.
Well, AJ, I want to thank you for coming on today to come and talk to us. Obviously, you've got classes in the practice schedule, the long trips down to the Carolinas, it seems every weekend at this point, but we really appreciate you being here. And congratulations once again for our Male Athlete of the Week, and for your performance overall the weekend.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, well, next up, wrapping up our sports awards will be Sean Brown Sr. from men's basketball. They picked up about their biggest win of the year against number 16 Fairmont State, so be sure to stay tuned for that one. Wrapping up week 6 of the Frostburg Sports Awards with our Coach of the Week, Sean Brown Sr., after basketball knocked off number 16 Fairmont State in their final game of the season. Coach, a big win for your program. First off, congratulations on that. And then second off, if you could just give some of your thoughts on the team's performance over this past weekend and really as the season overall.
Well, first off, thanks for that intro and thanks for having me. This past week it was up and down. Obviously, starting with the D&E loss, we put everything into that game, and we really didn't quite get everything that we expected. We had some pretty solid games, but on the other side, those guys played. They played their hearts out on senior night, and they had some pretty big performances themselves. So that was a really emotional game, and it was an emotional letdown. But our guys, they battled back on Thursday. We came with good energy. The coaching staff came with good energy. Coach Schmidt already had a game plan ready to go Thursday. And we told those guys, we're not mathematically eliminated, until we're done, until they put the dirt on top of us, we're going to battle. And, guys had really good energy on Thursday, not so much on Friday. They had good energy, just wasn't real focused on Friday, and we kind of let them get it out of their system. It was the last practice. We didn't throw them out of practice or anything like that. We just kind of we let them get it out of their system, and we regrouped probably like for the last 10 minutes, and we really had a really tough 10 minutes of practice that last 10, and we got them out of there Saturday leading up until that game. Those guys came in really focused for shoot-arounds. I can honestly say of the jump shots we shot, we probably made, which is crazy, 75% of our jump shots and shoot-arounds. And I'm looking at Coach Trey, I'm looking at Coach Schmidt, and we're looking at each other like, wow, where did this come from? And they were like laser focused. So, we knew coming in that we had a shot, and we knew we had a good game plan in place. Obviously, we feel like we got the talent to match up with them, and although they had some injuries, we have some injuries, but we feel like we match up really well with them, and we've always felt like we match up really well with Fairmont, and we thought, let's see what happens. And our guys felt really good about Saturday, and yeah, that's the lead up to Saturday.
You talked about the good matchup with Fairmont, and we saw that on the road with you guys, and it was a very, very close loss at that time as well, and it was really back and forth the entire game. Neither team led by, I felt like, more than 5 or 6 at any point. Very, very balanced on both sides. I mean, Kanan was knocking down every single shot it seemed that he took, and Isaiah Sanders was making down every shot for Fairmont on the other side, but did that game really teach you guys, after, a couple of losses last season where it was like 20 points and obviously a different team, but now this year you knew you could battle with them for an entire game, and then coming into senior night and you knew they were going to be motivated. They're still playing for a top seed in the MEC, and for you guys to have that information before, it was, the energy was, we can match up with this team.
Well, I think you hit it right on the nose. Right, we felt like after that game that we could compete with any team in Division II. After that game, Fairmont on the road, we were right there. We were right there, and at times we can be in the game, but it feels like we're so far behind. But in that Fairmont game, it actually felt like we were all in it, like we were going to win that game, and it was such a letdown when we didn't win the game. I mean, yeah, I think they were like number 12 or 11 at that point of the season, but we're like, guys, we should have had that game. And the players felt the same way. So, yes, definitely, I'm not saying that the guys wanted payback or it was anything like that, but it was a little bit of a payback because we felt like we left a win on the court there, on their home court. And, it was really nice to come back and get this one on our home court.
In the start of the game against Fairmont, it was senior night for you guys. I mentioned a couple times, and 4 guys that really have been key members of the program for at least 2 years now. And obviously, Sean Patterson and Torrin Stevens have been here a little bit longer, but Kanan and Jahar, both a couple of graduate students that have made their impact for the 2 years. To have that moment for them and be able to honor them and their families being there with the home crowd all electric up there, what was the emotion feeling around the team to have those guys be able to walk out with obviously all the difficulties with COVID over the past couple of years, but that was their moment to have and just before the game be able to celebrate with them?
Man, it was an incredible moment, and I'm an emotional guy, to begin with. So it was a very emotional moment for myself. And to be able to share that moment with those guys, every year is the same. It's the same feeling. From the 20th guy on the team to any of the starting 5, it's always emotional on that night. You think about the 4 or 5 years you spent with the young man, and the amount of growth that they've had over that 4 or 5 year period. Even our transfers that came in. Speaking on, Kanan, he's going to be graduating with a master's degree. Jahar, he's already graduated with his undergrad, and he's going to be graduating next year with a master's degree. So, just to see the growth in these young men, and again, over a 4 or 5 year period, it becomes emotional and sometimes overwhelming. But, it was great to have that moment with those fellas, and also end the season like that with a big time win over a nationally ranked team, a team that heck we've never beaten our existence here. So that was a big time win, and that was good to share with those guys. They deserved it.
into the game, and in the first half, it was really close in the first few minutes with Torin and just went off on rebounding and scoring, and Ajay was right there with him and keeping the team. And then Fairmont really went on a run, and something that they're capable of against anyone, and went up by 15, 16 points and had a pretty sizable lead at halftime. But you guys came out in the second half and immediately cut the deficit down to 6 in 6 minutes in that second half. What was the message to them at halftime to get them motivated? Was it, something that the coaching staff did? Was it the players talking with each other of we should be better than this and we are better than this? Or was it sort of a combination of both to have that fire for that second half?
It was a combination of both, and I guess I could disclose now since there's no more games. Coach Schmidt went in at halftime, and he pointed to the scout. He pointed at specific things that we weren't doing, and they directly affected our performance. These are the things that we need to be doing, so this is what we're going to do, to fix this, which is half game and, in-game adjustments, which myself, I'm getting better as a young coach. Second thing we did, which was player-led, those guys, kind of what you said, they looked at each other and go, we need to fix this. What are we doing? This is our last game. This is it. And then, one of our leaders, one of our best guys said, is this how we're going to finish our season? Is this how we're going to leave it? And, guys kind of, rallied around him and rallied together. But then there was an adjustment, another coaching adjustment made right before we left for the second half, right before our guys took the court. I was speaking with some of our upperclassmen, and they wanted to defend a certain way, and we talked about it, and we made that adjustment in the second half, and we started getting a string of stops, just back to back to back to back, and their offense seemed to be stalled with that minor adjustment that we made. So we stuck with it, and they were in neutral the whole second half. They couldn't get going for anything. They got a few things. They got some putbacks. They hit some tough shots in the second half, but their offense was stuck in neutral. They couldn't move. They couldn't do anything. Obviously we played pretty good defense. We communicated. We were very physical and guarding the ball and rebounding the ball. And offensively, we did what we do once we played good defense.
Yeah, speaks well to the defensive adjustments when they score 45 in the first half and you hold them to 28 in the second half. It looks pretty nice on you guys. Going in later in the game then and finally taking the lead with about 6 minutes remaining was a 1-point lead. As I'm there on the PA announcer and holding the microphone, and I look over to Ben Crowder, who's our boss and is statting the game there, and I look at him and I go, we're only down by 6, Ben. And then, as the game goes on, it's, hey, we're taking the lead. And, in that moment is, looking around the arena and hearing everything, there was just an energy in that arena with the crowd and everything. It was every single shot, every single defensive possession. It was the crowd willing the team on. And one of the few times that we've really seen that this year, we've obviously had some big crowds, but this felt like the momentous game where the crowd really affected the team. Were you guys feeling that on the bench as well?
Oh, absolutely. We feel that energy. We feel that energy. Our bench feels that energy. The 5 guys on the court feel that energy. And willing, it kind of, I don't know if you all remember, the atmosphere started, it kind of got like that in the Wheeling game too. And, that's why folks, try to play so, they try to play so hard on the road, because when they get to home games, they have the crowd behind them. They have that energy. That's why home records are much better than away records. They have that support system behind them. But yes, I agree. That electric, we hadn't felt that kind of electric in the building for a long time, and it felt great, and it definitely willed our kids or our young men to do more and to kind of stay focused, stay locked in, and give a little bit extra. And man, it felt great.
At the end of the game as well, when things were getting close towards the end, it was really the senior leaders, and it was Torin and Sean and Jahar that were making the big shots, and obviously have to throw in Ajay Edwards as there, who's almost a senior leader in himself, even though he's got another year or two left in him while he's here, but certainly a leader in that locker room. And how fitting was it for you guys to have really those 3 seniors lock things down? Kanan, a little bit of foul trouble, but came in, played big minutes late in the game as well. Just the nature of it to have the seniors lead the team to that big victory at the end.
That was more than anything more satisfying, the most satisfying, because it was those guys that took care of business. Those guys brought us back and got us back in the game and made the plays down the stretch. Bartley, you mentioned Bartley had foul trouble. He shot horribly in the first half. I think he went like 0 for 6, 0 for 7, maybe even 0 for 8. Second half, he didn't miss a shot. He was 4 for 4, and every shot he hit, all 4 of them was humongous, hand in his face, and those were the ones that kind of kept us afloat when we couldn't hit shots. So, but yeah, all 4 of those seniors, they got us back in it. I mean, Sean Patterson, I remember every last one of his buckets. Probably 10 of his 12, if not 12 of his 12, came in the second half. Torn, 9 of his came in the second half, but I think all of his rebounds came in the second half. So Jahar, all of his points, if I'm not mistaken, came in the second half. So those guys, Sean Patterson, he hit 2 3-pointers in the second half. But this is a skill set that he has. And folks kind of went crazy in the gym, but we know he has this skill set because we see it every single day. He'll pump fake, reset, shoot the 3, and then run up with the 3. Because he knows he's gonna hit it. He has that skill set, just never quite displayed it. In real games. So, everything just kind of came together. Our guys, they knew this was it. When you're at the very end and you're fighting for everything, sometimes it's a superhuman effort will come out, and that's kind of what happened. Everything kind of aligned.
You look ahead to next year, and obviously with those 4 seniors graduating, and obviously you can't replace their personality in the locker room. You can't necessarily replace how they perform on the court. But this group has a core going into next year, and what you can get out of a lot of these guys. And looking at the MEC, teams will look at us missing again on the MEC tournament for the 3rd year. But to have that knowledge of, we just beat the number 16 team in the country. We've competed with a lot of these top teams in the conference and fell by close margins. You take that into next year, you've got another year of coaching under your belt. Your 2 assistants have another year of coaching. And looking at next year, you think, and you could tell these guys, that could be our year. We could finally break through, make the playoffs, shock a couple people. How do you prepare for that? Obviously, we're very early in the offseason, but, you've got this momentous win, and that can be the launch pad for another good season.
And you're absolutely right. That's exactly what we told the guys on Saturday in the locker room after the game. That's exactly what we told them. We told the seniors, we started out telling them, those 4 are our building blocks. We had our first 2 big money kids who we brought into the program on scholarships. And those 2, did really well. They did everything they set out to do and everything we asked. Then we had 2 kids who's been with me for 4 years. Sean's been in the program 1 year prior to me. So those guys are literally our building blocks. And this win was a monumental win. And, all year, and in fact, for the last 2 years, we've been talking about, accepting nothing less. Accepting nothing less. Now our guys know exactly what we want and what we mean. And we're not going to accept anything less than that performance that we put out there the second half on Saturday. Beating the number 16, number 17 team, Fairmont State, that is the expectation. And it's always been, but that's the expectation moving forward. We're not going to accept anything less.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you for coming on today to come and talk to us. We've enjoyed your presence all season and glad to have you here on your final appearance here on the Frostburg Sports Awards after your season concluded. Big congratulations on beating Fairmont State, and really happy for you and the team as a whole.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate you all having me, and I appreciate winning the Coach of the Week award. That means a lot to me. I want to thank our administration, Dr. Nowacek, Mr. Troy Dell, Ruben Stevenson. They've supported this athletic program, not just the basketball program, but this athletic program into this Division II move. And we are making strides. And I think we have something special moving forward for the future. Look out for men's basketball. One last thing, if you don't mind, I'd like to thank my wife for for always showing me support and holding down the family while I'm putting in a lot of hours here at work, and it means a lot to me, as well as my family and our support staff. Also, the media folks, you guys do a great job in supporting us, and we really appreciate you all.
We appreciate you and your thanks here, Coach. So next week, we'll be back with Week 7 of the Frostburg Sports Wars. Be sure to stay tuned. We'll have 2 new athletes and another coach. So as always, go Bobcats.